Since I first posted the frequently confused words, I've had several friends chime in with words that particularly drive them crazy when people misuse them. And the first kind of three, really, that we are going to look at are lead, lead, and lead. And I'll explain the differences of these. The first one, in fact, the first two, are verbs, and this would be the present tense. For instance, I lead a parade. All right? No problem. People usually get that one correct. Where we have trouble is in the past tense. And when people mean, so again, it's the verb, but this is past tense, and it's, for instance, yesterday, I led a parade. All right, and those are both verbs, and it's simply present tense, past tense. Where people get confused, I believe, is that this is also pronounced lead, but this is a noun and this is a metal. And people might say, oh, something was heavy as lead. And it's a totally different word from the LED. If you mean someone led something or someone a certain way, you want the LED one. These next two drive a lot of people crazy. And they mean totally different things. They're pronounced different ways. They're spelled but too often people use the second one when they mean the first one. The very first thing I will mention is this one is pronounced with a Z sound. This is lose, all right? And it is a verb. And it can mean two things. To not win, or to cease having possession. Not win would be to lose the game. And again, people say these correctly, they just don't spell them correctly sometimes when they write. Cease having possession would mean don't lose your keys or your key. All right? The second one is pronounced with an S sound. This is loose, and it is an adjective. And it can mean two things. One is it's not secure, as in a loose dog, or the dog got loose. The other would mean not tight. And this is kind of the same thing, because to be tight is to be very secure, and this could be a loose ring or a shoestring. So the second one is loose and the first one is lose. These next two especially drive me crazy. And the first one is use, the second one is utilize. They are both verbs, and they they both mean to employ something, not like to employ people uh, particularly, but like to employ something. As in, I use the screwdriver. Now, the reason this second one just bugs me is because people usually use it to show off. They think it sounds very intellectual or educated to say utilize instead of use, but they are not impressing people who know the difference between these two words. And there's no reason to use a three-syllable word when a one-syllable word works unless you are getting more precise in your meaning by using the three-syllable word. And in this case, they just substitute utilize in where they should be using use, because utilize actually means to employ something for a use that it was not intended. For example, I utilize a quarter or a penny to tighten the screw. Coins are meant to be used as money. They're not meant to be used as screwdrivers. But when I am using it for a totally different purpose, then I am utilizing it. The next two, these are the easiest two that I will give you. Among and amongst. All right, they mean the same thing, except in the US, this is the one. That's supposed to be a star. I'll put that. And if you're in Canada, England, etc., you may use amongst. But for all the American kids out there who are studying in America, stop using amongst. That is just, again, kind of trying to show off a bit, and among is the word you should be using. If you look at these two, used to, supposed to, in a lot of conversation, that is exactly how we say these expressions. But that's partly because in the US we get quite casual about our use of the language, and we don't necessarily put word endings on. And neither of these is correct, because the correct way is always used to. That is simply not correct. By the same token, the correct form of this is always supposed to. Now, because we have those two different consonants right together and we have to kind of stop to say both of them in between the words, we get lazy and we just say, I'm supposed to go. And yes, it does sound like the one I have typed there, but it's not correct. You always have the D on the end of those two when you are using the expression used to and supposed to. These next two were suggested by a friend. I have not seen this too often, but this friend has. And what we have is one that is not a word and one that is. And see if you can tell which is which. This is correct. And it's going to get, oops, sorry. It's going to get a butterfly. Because it is correct. Several butterflies. There. That actually has the appearance of what is known as the blue morpho butterfly found in Costa Rica. And this one is not a word. It does not exist. So please do not ever use that word. Don't spell it that way. Don't say it that way. And these are the last for this particular lesson.